All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Darrell Adams from the Owl Moon Wilderness. You may recognize his name if you've read the book The Owl Moon Lab, A Paranormal Experiment by Tobe Johnson, which is a fantastic read from Hangar One Publishing. Highly recommend it. I'll have the links in the show notes, but it's a pleasure to have you on the show finally. How are you doing today, Darrell?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
That's awesome. And are you okay with sharing where you are currently?
Oh yeah, I'm out in Oklahoma.
That's right. Which I think that's interesting by itself, and we might get there eventually. But I think I would love to start out with just talking about your experience at the Owl Moon Wilderness and what you experienced. And we already talked about in the pre-show that this isn't going to be everything because, quite frankly, there's too much, and you can get the whole story by reading that book. But what are some interesting memories or experiences you had when you were in that area of Oregon?
Oh, I like Tobe's book, The Owl Moon Lab. He could probably write 2 more of those books with all the stuff that happened to us there. I actually moved to Oregon in 2011, and I first moved to Roseburg area, which is about, 40 miles south of Cottage Grove area where the Owl Moon Lab Wilderness area is. And then we moved up there to the Owl Moon Lab after that. But pretty much soon as I moved into the house, the Owl Moon Lab house, I started hearing strange sounds. It backs up to a big wilderness area, BLM land, government land. So it kind of backs up to the mountains there, and there's nothing back there other than wilderness. So I would hear all kinds of weird sounds up there at night, and which led me to start recording stuff. I put out my recorder, and so a lot of strange things were happening. I was having a new shop built at that house, and so my brother has been kind of into the Bigfoot world forever, and I was just kind of working and didn't think about it. I've always been a hunter and a fisher and an outdoors person, so I kind of knew all the animals and everything, and this stuff I was hearing up there wasn't anything I'd ever heard. I've heard bobcats, mountain lions screaming, and all the weirdest stuff like that in the Sierras in California when I hunted as, growing up as a Boy Scout and everything. But this was like nothing I'd ever heard. Sort of like if you mixed a T-Rex and an African lion and they had a child and it was angry. So anyways, my brother had been into Bigfoot and stuff. So he actually got an invitation from Todd Neese to a thing they have every year out there in Oregon called the, I can't remember.
Beachfoot, probably?
The Beachfoot,
Yep.
They call it. And so my brother wasn't able to go, and me and him were going to go together. And so I ended up going, and I met Ron Morehead there. His daughter actually lives right there in or around Cottage Grove area. So we got to talking by the campfire, me and him and Bob Gimlin, and I let him hear some of the sounds I had recorded, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, man, those are, yeah." And I said, I'm new to the area. It'd be cool if I, met someone around there that could kind of, let me know what's going on, what this is, and what's happening. So Ron's like, "Oh yeah, you're pretty much neighbors with Tobe Johnson. He's right there in Springfield. You're within 30 miles of him or whatever." So as soon as I got back from Beachfoot, I kind of hit Tobe up on the Facebook Messenger, I think it was, because I didn't know him prior to that, and it just happened to be he was doing a thing down at the Cottage Grove Lake, which was within 2 miles of the property, where they got the London Trackway, where they had cast all those prints. So I met him down there, and we met, and just got to talking. I let him hear the sounds and stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, that's cool." He was driving a truck, and he was living up by Springfield, And I had the property, so I just said, hey, why don't you just move your little travel trailer down there on the property, and maybe we can. I'm retired. I got nothing else to do, so we can start, just researching this stuff and see what's going on. So he moved his trailer over there to the property for a couple months, and then everything just kind of. Actually, I think it was. Oh, he was there. He may not even been there yet, and I had drawn an elk hunt for the land up behind there. And it was actually the last day of the hunting season. So he had just gotten off work truck driving. So he jumped in my truck and we went up there, and we're driving because I had seen a bunch of the structures, out in the woods that the Bigfoots do, and markers. And I was telling him, and as we're going up there, he's driving up this old logging road. There's the red clay on the sides of the roads, and he says, hold it. So I pull over in the truck, and there's these two big impressions in the clay, the red clay, and it'd been rainy, so they were really fresh. So we ended up getting these knee impressions. We stayed out there till about 1 a.m. till the plaster set up, and we got these knee impressions, and that's a whole nother story. But we brought them back to my property, the Owl Moon Lab property. We first put them it had a big garage also. And the shop was just kind of being finished up at that time. So they sat in the garage for a couple weeks while the red clay dried up on them. They're big, they're good size. And as it dried up, we didn't want to disturb anything. We kind of wanted that clay to dry because it was like a cap, like a mud cap on those impressions. So it eventually dried, and by then the shop was ready. So I made a little carrier and we put them over there in the shop. And then, we pulled off the dried red clay, and there was hair. We had collected hair up there at the spot too when we first got them. And then, it's another story that Tobe sent the hair to a lady, Cindy Dosen, up in Canada, who's a vet or whatever she does. She's with the Olympic Project, and she's kind of like a scientist. She has a lab that she does that kind of work. And, the hairs that we found came back as non-human, human-like type hair from a lower extremity. And he didn't tell her anything about what these hair were from. He just sent them as a, can you tell me what these are thing? And then, he was doing a thing at Cottage Grove at the time, a meetup, strange bra thing once a month. And so he did her on the Zoom meeting there on the live thing with all the crowd. And, she was live reading to all of us what she had found. And he had not told her anything at all about what these were. And she came on to everyone, the whole crowd. I think Ron Morehead was there and a bunch of people. And this is an unknown hair from unknown human, no medulla, from a lower extremity. We didn't tell her, we got them off these knee impressions of this gigantic, whatever creature it is. But anyways, that was kind of cool. And anyway, the knee impressions got in this big shop. And as this stuff, as soon as we brought those knee impressions back to that property, everything really amped up. We were already having a few things, we were hearing the stuff at night, and we had like 2 a.m, someone would come and bang on the back of the door, which backed up to the property, like slap the door real hard. And it was a big old 2-story farmhouse, 5 bedrooms. It was just me and my wife and our little dog. So, I'm running downstairs with my Glock and my underwear on with a big flashlight, and never saw anything, and there'd be big greasy handprints everywhere on the doors and big. And, so pretty soon Tobe was there, and I just kind of started, doing these little experiments. I put out the recorder, and I got a parabolic and pointed in that area so I could really get get the sounds better recorded. Tobe downloaded Audacity onto the laptops, and he would go to work, and I'd sit there in the morning drinking coffee for about 4 or 5 hours and go through it all, And I still have, I think, 1,200 hours of stuff I haven't even listened to. But,
you have 1,200
unlistened to
gone
hours.
Through audio hours. Oh my goodness, Darrell.
Yeah, because I would put this thing out every night diligently. I would go out at 9 or 10, before I went to bed and set it all up. And then at 6 a.m, I'd go get it. And then I would, download it on the computer. And then I would put it on Audacity. And then, Tobe had it set up where you can see the spectrograph, where you could only know that it had to be like a Sasquatch making that rumble or whatever. So I got those sounds that, they use them on Expedition Bigfoot at the beginning of every episode. You hear the big Bigfoot yell.
Oh, that's yours?
Yeah, that's a sound I recorded there.
Really?
And I actually have a bunch more. They're not really cleaned up. Not Scott Taylor, a guy from the Olympic Project.
David Ellis.
Yeah. He cleaned them up for us a little bit. But I have other ones that are really good, along with the ones that they use. And then there was actually about that week when I got all those, I still got all that recorded. There's a bunch of other yells and screams like that I have. And I actually have a bunch of them talking like the Ron Morehead stuff, where they sound like a Native American had a child with an Oriental lady, and they're just out there speaking that samurai chatter or whatever you want to call it. You can't make it out. I got a bunch of that too. I got all kinds of stuff recorded.
Your version of the samurai chatter, man.
I would say,
was that called out in the book?
I'm not sure, but I was just going by what Ron Morehead calls it on his recording. Right. The Sierra sounds, that samurai chatter they call it, I guess. But to get back to the lab, as Tobe named it, the reason he called it that was the night that we cast those knee impressions. They have the wolf moon, the harvest moon. It was the owl moon, and it was actually, I think it was Good Friday, right before Easter Sunday. That was the day that we cast those, and we stayed out there till like 12:30, 1 a.m. until the plaster set that we could bring it back. It was me and Tobe and my wife Cindy. And anyways, so as we got those knee impressions back, and I was doing all these little booby trap experiments, and Tobe was doing experiments with recorders, like setting 2 or 3 of them up so you can get all the different sounds we were getting, all the different EVPs we were picking up in that new shop and in the house. And the place is just like a hot spot for every kind of thing you can imagine. But so we kind of were joking one day and said, this is kind of like a lab in here, we're doing all these we got a mel meter set up over here, and, all these things that were going off all the time. And so he goes, yeah, it's the Owl Moon Lab. So that's just kind of how it came about. But so inside this shop, and Tobe has the recordings. I don't think they're in the book, but that shop would come alive at night. I would put the recorder in there, or he would. And it would sound like you get 50 people in there with hammers hitting on the inside of this brand new metal shop.
There's a few of those in the book, because I remember taken aback quite a bit by it. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's wild sounding. And we would, hear that and record it, and we would hear voices, EVPs in there. My little dog, Izzy, she's a little toy Australian Shepherd. She was deathly afraid of that shop. She wouldn't go in it unless you kind of forced her, and then she would stand by the door wanting out the whole time. So it was just a strange thing. And inside the house itself, it was an old farmhouse that was built in the early 1900s, late 1800s. It was just a 1-bedroom house to begin with. And the contractor that we bought it from, he was a building contractor. He had really made it into a big old farmhouse. He had added on to it. But it still had the original bones, the original structure under there, so he could get grandfathered in. But anyways, in the house, we would be in there at night. We'd hear voices downstairs and stuff. We would just all kinds of different things. Izzy's in here squeaking all her toys, want me to play. So that's all she does all day. But anyways, me and my wife are in bed one night. And we're upstairs out in the woods, and our whole bedroom just lit up like brighter than daylight, like a big white. But it wasn't a light that blinded your eyes. It's strange, very strange thing. Lit up for maybe, it seems longer, but when it happens, it's probably 3 or 4 seconds. But that was some of the weirdness that would happen there. Lights. But that time it just lit up the whole bedroom like brighter than daylight. And then it just dark. So we're like, wow. But, we were around there for a couple of years, so we got kind of used to weird things happening. You know how you get kind of numb to things? You'd hear stuff downstairs, balls bouncing down the stairs. Where the big shop was, on one side, it was fenced. It had a chain link fence around it, the backyard area. But one night on the shop side where the fence was, animals, didn't really get in that area at all, at night, like, I don't know, a raccoon or whatever, because it was fenced in. But one night on that side, outside the house on the top, up high, because it was 2 stories, there were these big motion sensor lights. So if something set off the motion sensor, the light would come on like a bright light out into that backyard area. So one night we had the big master bedroom upstairs on the north side of the house, and on the south side, there were 2 other like bedrooms upstairs and then 2 down, but that was 5. But those 2 bedrooms over there in the summer, Oregon, you don't need an air conditioner hardly up in the woods like that. So what we'd do in the summer, we'd open our window, and on those other 2 bedrooms, we'd open the doors and their windows, and then the air would flow through on us to keep you cool at night. So one night about 2, it was always the witching hour or whatever, between 2 and 4 a.m. Weird things would happen outside. One night, my wife got up to go to the bathroom about 2:30, and the motion sensor light was on that side where the garage was, where it was fenced. So she's like, "Why is that light on?" And me, I'm thinking, well, I don't know. That's really strange. So I get up to go look because I could see down there really good. It's like you're setting up in a hunting blind or something. You're up 15 feet in the air on a 2-story house. You can look straight down into the yard, and it's a good moon at night. So I get out of bed. I start walking across the hallway there to the other bedroom so I could see out in the backyard really well. And as I was walking, that light went out. It timed out. They were only on for about 5 minutes. But I could still see out there because of the moonlight. So I'm looking down into that backyard, and there's a sidewalk around the side of the house here. And I see this big black thing against the side of the house. And directly below that bedroom is one of the downstairs bedrooms that I'll tell you a story about it in a minute, but we call it the Chucky room because weird things happen there. But anyways, I'm looking down and I can see good out there because it's pretty much a full moon. And here's this big dark thing against the house. And I'm thinking, oh crap, man, how could a bear get through that chain link fence? They can, but and we'd never seen a bear there ever. So I'm thinking, what in the heck is that? And I'm just looking at this thing, and it's just standing there really still, right up against the house, real tight. I can see its whole thing, and it's really tall because the bedroom window downstairs is about 8 foot tall because it had a concrete foundation around the house. And it's as tall as the top of the window on the downstairs. And I'm looking right down over it, like at its top of its body. And it's real wide and tall, like a bear standing up. So I'm looking at it and I whistle, like that. And this thing takes off. And when it does, it sounds like have you ever been around horses when they get up and shake the dust off, like that flutter they make? It sounded like that flutter, and boom, it took off. I heard it tink the top of the chain link fence, like it just stepped over it, and it was gone. But it was just a whoosh, like a big commotion. And it was so fast and powerful. It was just like, I can't even explain the power that it was, from something taking off like that. Like if you had a draft horse or the Budweiser horse, and it just took off at a dead run from a dead stop. That's how it was. And I was like, holy crap. The next morning I went down, and on that window, on the bedroom window downstairs on that bedroom, there was a handprint on the window that was huge. And what it did, the screen was on the bottom part of the window. On the windows, the top part doesn't have a screen. And there was a handprint where, I guess when the thing took off, it ripped the screen. You could see 5 finger holes in the screen where it ripped holes in the screen when it took off, when I scared it. And on the top glass, there was a big face impression with snot rockets. And Tobe, I don't know if it's in the book or not, but Tobe took samples. I went and got him. He was staying there at the time, and he took samples with Q-tips. We did everything kind of, with latex gloves and alcohol and everything so we could get the DNA. But he took samples of those snot rockets that were on the window, and you could totally see the big face impression on that window. And I think we measured it up. It was right at 8.5 feet on the window. And what it was that thing that I saw was looking inside that bedroom window. But of course, we didn't stay in that room. That was the 2 rooms downstairs we didn't stay in. It was just me and my wife and the one master upstairs. But that was a crazy thing there.
Was anything in that room then that it would have been looking at?
Not really. It was just, we had beds in there in case we had visitors. We just had a bed in there. But the story with that room is the people that we bought the house from had 3 children. And the older boy that was pretty much raised there his whole life, about 3 or 6 months after we'd bought the house and that family had moved out, the older boy that was raised in that bedroom, he ended up taking his life. So that was a sad thing. But that room, I call it the Chucky room because I don't know if you've seen, but one morning we wake up and I don't know if I saw it that same day or whatever, but I went in that room because we would always hear things in that room at night. It would sound like people talking or EVPs. So, and this was after the kid had passed. So I kept hearing people talking in there. So, and my dog would growl and then run under the bed and hide. But I said, I'm going to put my recorder in there. So I put my recorder in that room, and I'm not kidding you. I have the recording of it. It's a perfect EVP that says, I'm dead. I'm dead. It says it about 3 times on the recorder in that kid's room. And then I don't know how long it was after that I went in there one morning and the bed was always disturbed. It had a nice twin bed in there. Like the covers were always messed up on it. And nobody ever used that room unless we had visitors. So I went in there one morning to fix the covers again and kind of do some dusting around. And on the door, inside the bedroom on the wooden door, there's these 2 creepy, chalky handprints down low, probably about 4 feet. So, man, I freaked out. Every time I'd go in that room, my hair would get, the back of your neck would get weird. So I went and got Tobe. I said, come and check this out. You're not going to believe it. And I don't know if you've seen his thing, but he recorded it and he did like a black light, and it's the white, chalky, kind of weird looking alien handprints in that room. Ghostly looking handprints.
Yeah, it's weird stuff. As you're telling your account, I'm really remembering parts of the book, and it's an incredible read.
Yeah, me and my wife go to church. So and the house was cool. I mean, it was built with all hardwood floors and everything. Oregon has a lot of wood. So The guy was a contractor, so it was kind of a custom house. So it had all hardwood floors. We had in the living room where the coffee table was, we had a big rug, real nice rug in the living room. We went to church one day and we came back, and here's this big rock setting in the middle. I mean, here's the doors locked. We have a camera on the front door. Not a ring. It wasn't a ring back then. It was another name. Can't think of the name of the camera, but nothing on the camera, locked door. Here's a rock in the middle of the living room on that rug. It was kind of a flat, brownish colored rock. And my dog Izzy was upstairs under the bed. Anytime any of the weirdness of talking or all that would start going on, she'd go up and run and get under our bed. She could sense that stuff. Sometimes she would just stare at that room, that room that I called the Chucky room where those handprints were, and I got that EVP. And about a month before we moved out of that house, in that bedroom, it didn't have a fan. It had just the 2 light bulbs with the glass globe underneath, like older houses. And we're sitting in there one night watching TV, and we hear this pop, pop like that. It almost sounded like gunshots. And we didn't use those bedrooms. I walk into that bedroom to see what that sound was, and both the light bulbs in that bedroom blew up. And the lights weren't on. The lights hadn't been on for days. We'd never had any problems with any kind of electrical issues in the house or anything. And what was weird is underneath the light fixture in that bedroom, all the glass was stacked on the floor underneath the globe, and none was inside the glass globe. It was the strangest thing. How can 2 light bulbs explode and not go in the glass globe that's screwed onto the light fixture? That was just another one of the weird things there. And then, the stuff with the shop, we had the sounds, and all the time some sounds going on out there, banging, all kinds of hitting on the shop. We'd record sounds. I would, record sounds out back every night when it wasn't rainy, and, getting the Bigfoot screaming. I would hear like loud, like I would call it a siren. It's like these Bigfoots do this high pitched, like squeal sound. Like they're not screaming, but it's like, I don't know how they do it. Like a real high pitched whine. And whatever does it has a lung capacity that can go for like 3 minutes. And I have it recorded. I call it a siren, but it's a real high pitched sound they do. And where the Owl Moon Lab house is located, it's in a valley in between 2 mountain ranges there, but they're only probably 5 miles apart. The valley across the whole thing, maybe not even that far. You can see them. So you would hear Sasquatch on the Cascade side there yelling at night or whooping and screaming. And then behind our property there, the Owl Moon Wilderness, I call it, you would hear them answering back. So they would kind of go back and forth across that valley yelling at each other, like, don't come over here or whatever. I don't know. We just got so used to them yelling and screaming up there. I didn't record a lot of it at first, especially. I didn't have a recorder. I didn't have anything. So we would hear all kinds of screams and talks and yells and wah, big yeah. Sounds like you would hear stuff up there that sound like women screaming. I've heard mountain lions, when they're in heat or whatever, they scream like that, but not like this. They don't have this kind of power. Whatever does this you can almost feel it in your chest sometimes when they would yell and scream. It like goes through the air. I can't explain how it travels through the air like that, like a percussion wave maybe. And in that valley there, we would also hear sonar. Like sonar pings, like from the old submarines, like boing, boing. One day my wife came home from work and she's getting out of her Jeep to come in the house, and she heard a bunch of that sonar coming through the valley, and you could kind of feel it also. It was kind of in the air and it would go by you, you could hear the sound go by you like a meow, like it's going away, coming and going. But it was like a sonar pinging. So I come out and she's telling me, I just heard this sonar thing again. I'm standing there and here it comes. Like, meow. It's almost like it was a pressure going by. It's hard to explain it. But we had that stuff going on. EVPs a lot in the shop and the house. The Bigfoot yelling, screaming. Henry Franzoni came down once, the guy that just passed.
Yeah.
And we were having a thing. A bunch of people would come, and weird things would happen to them, or they'd get gifted things. We got a lot of gifts there too. Like stuff would just randomly show up with, the green patina on it, the mossy stuff. Uh-huh. Like when we first did the knee impressions, here's this locked shop with 2 big bay doors for RVs, completely locked, brand new electric doors. Come out one morning, here's this little green velociraptor toy kids dinosaur sitting it was either on the counter or right on the knee impressions where Tobe had been working, extracting the hair and stuff. And it had, like that green patina, like it'd been set out in the woods.
Right.
And, where does this stuff come from? You're out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. We'd get that. And anyways, Henry Franzoni, he came over. We were sitting in the shop talking. I think I made him some coffee and Tobe was there. One of the neighbors, guy named Ren, was there, and he was a musician. Ren used to be a professional musician. So him and Henry kind of were talking about music because Henry was a drummer, I guess.
Yeah.
And we were just all in there talking for a few hours, and Henry was saying, because we had heard some sounds in there when he was there, like the booms and the pings on the shop and some, low moaning, from up in the woods from the Bigfoots. But Henry, he's looking around and he's telling us that shop was kind of like a Tesla coil for all this weirdness, because right behind the Owl Moon property is the main power lines that go through the whole state of Oregon.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they're 2 big, within 1,000 feet of that shop or less. And then along the back side of that shop, within 30 feet, is an ice cold spring that comes out of the mountain and runs right behind that shop. It bubbles out of the ground right there on the hill. And then, the ground around there, you couldn't dig hardly anywhere without hitting quartz, rock, or agate, or jasper.
Oh, wow.
It's in the ground everywhere there.
Yeah.
So Henry, he said that combination of those things, that ice cold water with that, all that electricity, because, it's always misty, rainy, and it comes through the air, hits that ice cold spring water, which comes right by that big metal shop with all the quartz crystals in the ground. It kind of creates a tuning fork for that stuff, he said. And then that shop had these big coils, where the doors open and close, for the springs. And he said that kind of stuff, it's just like a big coil. And it was kind of funny because after he left, maybe a week or so later, Tobe had his recorder in there, I did, and we recorded some drumming on the outside of the shop, like boom, 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 boom. And it was to a beat. Tobe knows what it is. I don't know. But it was a beat to a drum beat. And that was another thing. We would talk about stuff, me and Tobe, just jokingly in the mornings while we were going through the sounds with Audacity and talking. And Tobe was actually building Biggie, that Bigfoot statue that he built.
Exactly.
For the Ron Morehead thing in the shop. So we'd just sit in there and talk for an hour or 2 in the mornings, and I'd go through what I recorded the night, and he recorded. We heard that drum beating. It was like, whoa, that is strange. And then Tobe said, yeah, Henry used to be a drummer or is a drummer, and that's like some kind of beat. Tobe knows the rhythm of it, but we thought it was really strange that, they were talking about drumming, him and Ren, about musical instruments and all that. And then within a week or 2, this thing's Bigfoot or whatever does it was out here drumming. I had a couple 55-gallon drums flipped over that I used for burn barrels, And then in the winter when it's wet, I turned them over so they wouldn't rust out with water. But something was outside the shop drumming on those things. And you could also hear the actual Sasquatch growling and moaning. Tobe has all of it recorded. But it was strange that a lot of times things that we would discuss in the shop in the mornings, things would show up as gifts pertaining to what we discussed. Like, I think it was in, what was that, 21 or 18, whatever year it was there. The White Sox hadn't won the World Series for a long time, I think it was. So we're not really sports fans, me or Tobe, but we're just talking, hey, man, that was pretty cool. Those guys came back and, at least got in the World Series or whatever. We're talking baseball for a minute. Uh-huh. The next morning behind Tobe's Jeep, embedded in this hard pan gravel, I mean, there was a gravel driveway all in front of the shop, rock, was this old baseball. And it looked like somehow it just popped into the ground. Half of it was embedded into the ground, into this soil that you couldn't even put a dent in with a pick. And Tobe found it, I think, behind his Jeep, and it had patina all over it. And that's just some of the weird things there. We talked about, hunting season's going to be coming up, bow hunters or whatever. A few days later, here's an old arrow laying behind Tobe's Jeep that was no feathers left on it or anything. It was old, like had patina all over it. Just things that we would talk about would just, show up out in the middle of nowhere. All kinds of rocks, like on a deck. And a lot of times things would show up in the number 3 for some reason. There'd be 3 rocks laying on the deck in the morning, 3 rocks in the back of my pickup truck bed. One morning, I had 2 trucks. I had one nicer truck and then one beater truck that we took out in the woods all the time. It was a little truck. But in the bigger truck, I would haul trash because living out in the country, you got to haul your trash to the landfill down the street. So I had this net, like a web, so the trash didn't fly out. Looked kind of like a spider web, big web I'd put on. So I'd hauled trash a day or two before that, and the web was still laying in the back of my truck. Came out one morning and it was a little dewy in the morning there. It was getting, fall weather. And the web was laying behind my truck in the gravel. And I'm looking, I'm like, that is weird. How'd that get out of the truck bed? It's a 4-wheel drive truck. It's not a little short new truck. It's new 4-wheel drive. And I noticed that the little plastic clips that you hooked it into the bed with, 2 of them were broken off. And I got to looking, and Tobe was there, and there was these 3 or 4 big giant finger swipes on the opposite side of the bed. We could see them real good in the moisture on the truck bed. And so whatever did this, grabbed that web and ripped it out of the truck where it was hooked on and threw it back on the gravel and broke 2 of the plastic things. But when it looks like it stood on the passenger side and reached all the way over to the other side and finger swiped the top of the bed and then reached down inside and ripped that web out and threw it out in the gravel. Like it was angry that there was something in the back of my truck. And Tobe actually he put some powder on those fingerprints, I think, and cast and got the dermal ridges and everything. And they're about 2 inches wide. They're huge. But whatever this thing was had to be tall enough to sort of reach over the cab of the truck, that corner portion of the truck, and put those finger swipes on the bed and grab that thing and rip it out of there. Yeah, so that was just another thing that happened there. Tobe had a little aluminum boat that me and him and his son would go trout fishing in down at the lakes. We lived by the lake, and then there was another lake called Darina that we would go fishing in. And he had it backed in beside the shop where a lot of the weird stuff happened, kind of on that side where those drums were, those 55-gallon metal drums. But me and Tobe was hauling cabinets from Eugene, Oregon to Bend, Oregon, over the mountain there. And we would text back and forth in the mornings, stuff I would find or hear. I would text him and say, wow, look at this. Did you leave this here? Did you leave that there? we were finding stuff all the time or getting sounds. We were communicating back and forth on the phone, and all of a sudden, both our phones just went completely dead.
Whoa.
And actually, I lost 2 phones there that just, they went out. They were Verizon phones. And I went to Verizon, and the lady that worked at the store there in Cottage Grove couldn't believe it because everything was gone off the phone. A friend of mine says that's government erased your phone because all the stuff you had on it. But
So hold on. So you're saying it stopped working, but then also there was no data on the phone. So it was like almost a remote erase and then like a just wiped out
completely
power wise. Oh my
completely
goodness.
wiped off. You know how you can, when you get a new phone, they can kind of take the stuff off your old phone?
Yep.
Nothing on one of them. Nothing, just gone. And Tobe was having problems with his phone. He said, I might have to stop and, get me a new phone on the way back because this one's having all kinds of problems. So I think it was 2 days later, maybe the next morning, he's looking at his boat because I think we're going to go fishing. And they'd stocked the lake with trout, and me and him and his son were going to go fishing. And he's looking, he's getting everything ready. And underneath the paddle on his boat is a phone. And it's an old, I'd never even seen a phone like this. Tobe knew about them. It's a flip phone. It's a phone that slides up.
Oh yeah.
Slides
Exactly.
open.
Yep.
And it was covered in patina. Looked like somebody lost it in the woods like 20 years earlier. But we'd just been talking both about having to get new phones. And that's what I mean by, we would talk about stuff and then something reminiscent of what we were talking about would show up, like a baseball or an arrow or a phone. We were talking once about Toby's son. He likes Christmas, so he likes to decorate, Christmas time. And Tobe was telling me that his son's got some old Christmas decorations, and he likes to put them up, a few weeks before Christmas. So no more than a day or two after that, in Tobe's boat, here's this antique Christmas bulb that you hang on a Christmas tree. I mean, the thing looks like it's from the 50s. Just laying in his boat. And it's really fragile. I mean, those things are glass. And how did this just show up inside his boat after we're talking about it?
Thinking back to what you said, Henry said about being a sort of Tesla coil and those different factors that played into it, I almost wonder if that environment could be replicated. You know what I mean?
Like get a PVC tube and fill it up with quartz crystal and run some ice cold water through it with a electrical charge above it. Maybe.
Well, I'm saying even
Something
find
like
a
that.
property that has the same amount of quartz or is
Yes.
also by a huge power line and then
a similar property to that. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
That place kind of is the perfect storm, for that. It's just super strange, the stuff that happened. And then, during the pandemic, my wife is a counselor, mental health therapist, specialist. So her work, she couldn't go into work during the COVID. So we had to end up selling the house because she had to do everything remotely from home, with all the clients and everything.
Right.
So we ended up selling the house. She is staying with our daughter. And then we ended up getting another house with a big office where she could, for over a year, she had to basically have a private practice in our house. And out where the Owl Moon is, the internet is sketchy at best.
Okay.
So, we had no good connection there. So she was tired of staying with our daughter and having to work from there. And we just said, well, let's just, so we just basically moved into the town area, Cottage Grove. We actually moved to Cresswell first.
So that's what made you move.
That's what made us move.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with the stuff that was going on there.
Okay.
The crazy stuff.
I always wondered that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could go on for a week about everything that happened there.
Oh,
but anyways, after that, after we sold the house, I knew where all those sounds were coming from up above the house. So I drove back in there. I found this old logging road that kind of goes back in there right to that area, right above the property. And I'm walking down through there and I start finding signs of Sasquatch, like those structures and I call them leaners. They lean like the lean branches up against trees. There'll be 4 or 5 branches leaned up against a tree. You know, a person can do that, but it's not natural out in the middle of nowhere where people don't go or anything to find a tree with a bunch of branches leaned up against it.
Exactly.
And then I'd found footprints and stuff and and weaves. You know, there's a lot of vine maple there, and they'll take that vine maple and weave it like a weaver. It's really cool. You know, like you've seen birds weave their nests. They'll take that vine maple and the Bigfoots do and weave it. It's cool how they do it too. I don't even think a human can do it, especially up 8 feet up off the ground and all that.
I think I have a video that you sent of something
Yeah,
similar. I can
yeah.
play that right now.
But that's just one. We found a bunch
Okay.
of them, and we found a real big one. Mark Parker, my friend that saw the Sasquatch there, he took it. It was a real big one. It looked like a dream catcher, you know, like the Native Americans make the big dream
Yeah.
catchers. It
Yeah.
was weaved like that. It was all intertwined, and it was really cool. I don't know if he still has it or not, but and then there's still a bunch of those weavings up there around there. But so I saw all that stuff and I thought, man, this is going to be where I put my habituation area. It's right up above the property and all the stuff's right here. So I started to go, I started going to Walmart, getting peanut butter and cookies and just latex gloves on. And I started just putting peanut butter on a tree, you know. I'd come back and actually for about the first month or two, nothing happened. Nothing. I put peanut butter, I'd put cookies. I mean, there's not many animals up there. There's not raccoons and stuff. There's a few possums here and there, but it's not a real active animal area, you know. There's a few deer that go in and through there. But so nothing happened for a couple months. And I thought, dang, I don't know. And then I come back one time. I would go up there about 2 to 3 times a week. Then I come back one time and everything's gone. It looks like I'd never even been there. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So I started doing these little booby trap things. I'd put the peanut butter out. I'd put my game camera out. I would put boiled eggs. I'd go to Walmart, get the 3 flats of eggs that you buy together, and I'd put half boiled, half raw. I would do the Easter egg hunt. I'd put them in between bark of old dead tree stumps. I'd put them everywhere. I'd come back 3 days later, and you could not even find an egg shell out of 75 eggs or whatever it is, 3 dozen, whatever, ever how many eggs there is. But I thought that was really strange. You know, if animal, a bear, whatever, I know bears will eat eggs or whatever, but I would stick them down behind this bark and hide them, you know, like you're hiding an Easter egg from an adult. So they can't find them and they're gone. And the bark's not torn away like a bear tore it away, getting to it or nothing. The bark's still right there. I would take photos of everything, videos, and right where I put the eggs, the bark hasn't been touched, but the egg is gone. Not a shell, not anything. I think if a bear or some kind of animal tore up, you know, 4 or 5 dozen eggs, they would at least leave some shells or some kind of, you know, something showing. So I went to the feed store, I think it was, or Tractor Supply or one of them, and I got these big rat traps. You know, they're sticky, like you use them in a shop where mouse or rat runs over and they get stuck on them. And I got some big 16 penny nails, and I got my stool, and I nailed these rat traps up high on a pine tree, as high as I could reach, probably 8.5 feet. I put peanut butter behind them. I was trying to get some hair. I put peanut butter behind them and cookies and smash them up against there. I come back, here's a tuft of red hair in one of them, you know, because when it touched it to get the thing, reddish brown hair. And then what they ended up doing was, Tobe couldn't believe it. They took their fingers and pulled the nails out of the tree. I mean, these are 16 penny nails. They're like 3.5 inches long, hammered in this tree. They'd pull it out of the tree and then discard the rat trap down into the woods like a Frisbee. I'd find them down out of the way.
Oh my goodness. That
And
is
then,
nuts.
So a couple of years ago, you know, I went back, I'd moved, and then I went back out there and started doing it again. And one day, me and my grandson went down in there to get the card out of the game cam. And he's a young boy. He's 20 or 21. He takes off down the hill real quick, and it's muddy and kind of slick going off the hill there. So I'm old and kind of going slow, hanging on to stuff. So he goes down in there, and to the right of where we had the game cam and I put peanut butter and stuff, there's a little gully, a little ditch thing coming up through there, a little crevice. And I see something dark. So every time I went out there, I would get my phone ready because I knew either I'd record a weird sound or something weird would happen.
Right.
So I see this black figure start walking up that little gully away from that camera as my grandson went down to the left of it. So it's taken off walking super fast with its head down. I saw it in between the trees. So I'm just snapping pictures, and that's where I got those 2 pictures of that.
Oh, yeah.
Bigfoot walking away.
Let me see.
It kind of, it kind of had its head down a little bit, and it was walking super fast. And it looked like it was kind of a reddish brown hair, but it wasn't real hairy. It almost looked like, a dog with the mange, have you ever seen a dog that's got missing hair on it? Like it's got something wrong with it.
Yeah, hold on.
It kind of looked like that. It wasn't real. There's the mirror with the finger swipe.
I'm trying to find the particular. Okay, they're right here, right?
There it is. Okay, see that little kind of a gully that it's in there?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, but I was kind of standing uphill of it on the side there, and it's kind of walking up that little gully. The tree with the peanut butter and the camera and stuff is probably a few hundred yards to the left of that, down in the gully more, down in the bottom more.
And you're talking about the gray figure in the dead center of the photo.
Yeah,
right? Like it's the most clear I've seen one of these photos to be.
Yeah, it was walking away real fast, and that I finally braced myself against a tree, and I snapped about 20 pictures real quick, and I got that one, and then the next one when it's going behind the tree, that one, and then it was gone. It went on up the hill there, and then there's footprints. We always had footprints from them down in there.
Did you try to figure out
how
tall it may have been?
Me and Tobe and his son went out there, and he has the measurements.
Yeah.
But if you can see above its head on the tree, there's like a branch or something sticking out.
Yep.
Well, that branch, I think, is 9 foot 7 inches from the base of the tree. It's BLM land.
Oh, wow.
Or government. Anyway, we put Tobe's son there. He's about 6'1" or something. And his head almost is just above the waist of that thing that you see there.
That's incredible.
And it almost looked like maybe the top of his head was balding, It's
so weird.
And you can kind of see the muscles on the back of its leg. You can see it better on my phone and on the computer when you blow it up, but it was walking super fast. And, then we just heard some branches breaking up on the side of the hill because I yelled at my grandson, get up here, because I didn't know if there was more of them down there or whatever. Yeah. Also, that area where that thing was, that's where I got the other picture of that alien thing walking. I saw it take a couple steps and I ran out of there. That thing scared me.
Oh, boy.
It was a tall, thin thing. You showed a picture of it. It was tall.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Looked to be super tall from a distance. And it was also walking, and I saw its hand move and its head kind of turned looking towards where I was. So I got out of there. And it looked like it had some bright light coming out of its left hand. There you go. That
this
was
one. Oh, wow. Really? Oh, I wondered what that was when you sent it.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see there, but you can kind of see its legs open there and its right arm. And then out of its left hand, it had like this bright beam of light. And this is in the daytime. This is in the morning. And it looked like it was in a total silver suit. It was really thin. And it looked like it had some helmet on that was shaped like a diamond shape, almost like the hat the Pope wears.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like that, like the Pope's hat, like it was a diamond shape.
And it was definitely walking on the ground, not floating.
It appeared to be walking where that's at. It's kind of coming down a hill into that little gully where that Bigfoot walked away at.
Oh
I think
boy.
those are the same exact trees right there that I got the picture of the Bigfoot walking through. Can you see down below it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like in the same exact line.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh man.
And I saw its right arm move and it caught my attention. And then it kind of like turned its head towards me. You can see it kind of. I took about 4 or 5 pictures, and that was kind of like the only one I got that was okay. And I got out of there. It was scary. I thought, oh, what the heck?
All this stuff is so tightly woven together, is what I'm finding out. So, when was the last time you were in this Owl Moon Wilderness area?
It's been a couple years ago now, but I'm going back at the end of this month.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm going to be there for a week or so.
By yourself or?
I got other people that want to come
All right.
because
All right.
it's
Good.
kind of like I'm the OG of the Owl Wilderness.
Yes, yes.
When I show up,
yes.
weirdness happens. I don't know.
I was going to not directly come out and ask it, but I was kind of curious if since you're in Oklahoma, maybe you'd be kind of showing local researchers the area and kind of passing it on. And it sounds like this might be something, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see.
I guess there's some people around there. Yeah, I lived there for a long time and I know that whole area like the back of my hand. I know other places around there that weird stuff like upside down trees. There's an elk wallow where I got a bunch of Bigfoot tracks, all within like a 5 mile radius of that.
Oh my goodness.
And the BFRO has sighting reports, Class A sightings right there in that exact area also.
Oh, do they really?
From years, yeah, for years.
What county would that be again?
That right there is Lane County,
of course, yeah.
and it borders.
Right.
Oh, what's the other? Douglas.
Same as Oak Ridge, yeah.
Yeah, Douglas.
Yeah.
Douglas and Lane, they're kind of right there. They butt together right in that area.
Well, it's Darrell, it's such a fascinating story. And the coolest part that I wasn't realizing is that it could be a continuing story out of nowhere. And I thought that this story was just a dead end after you had moved out to Oklahoma, but
No.
it could start happening, or we'll see where this goes. But
Also the UFO stuff there, I don't know if you know about that. Tobe tell you about the UFO that would show up in the backyard and the neighbor called it the chandelier.
Oh man. I don't know.
It would show up above those power lines and hover there with making no sound for an hour at a time or less. And it would surge. It would like a power surge. I don't know if it was drawing power off those power lines. I never saw anything coming up off the power lines. But it would set there in the air and it would look like I called it like a jellyfish because I don't know if you've ever been to Monterey, California at the whatever. The aquarium, Monterey Aquarium, they have jellyfish that glow in the dark and they're real pretty lights. But that's what this thing would do. It would hover in the air and it would put out all these real pretty lights from underneath it. And it was like a ball of plasma or something. It would surge in and out like it was giving off power and sucking up power.
Wow.
But the neighbor, he had seen this thing for years. He'd lived there since the 90s. And
really?
he'd called it the chandelier because you know how pretty a chandelier is with all the glass and everything, with pretty colors. That's what it looks like in the sky. It makes no sound. And I actually have a video I took of it. I would see it when I took my dog out to go to the bathroom before we went to bed. But one night I saw it and it was kicking out these orbs into that Owl Moon Wilderness area. It was dropping these balls of light. And I have a video of that I can show you. Tobe slowed it down so you can see the orbs coming out of this UFO perfectly. And it's dropping them into that area where all this weirdness happens up there, the Owl Moon Wilderness area.
I was just up in Oak Ridge this summer for a week.
Yeah.
And just the Lane County area is just so weird, man.
Oh, yeah. If you go up in the Cascades, there's like Sharps Creek and all those areas and the Bohemia area. There's all kinds of weirdness up there.
I've been hearing a lot of weirdness about Sharps Creek. A lot of people have been contacting me about that whole campground area. And
did you see the portal picture that I sent you that I saw coming out of the tree? We were up there one night. It was me and Tobe and a bunch of people from that area that Tobe knows that are, Bigfoot community.
Right.
We're up there about, I don't know, must have got to be about midnight. They were doing their drums and, we had a little fire. And so this lady who is from Washington State, she's kind of a seer or whatever you call these ladies that kind of, know a medium or whatever, know what's going on.
That's it.
Yeah. Now, right to the left of that is a giant big pine tree if you look down low.
Yep.
But anyway, she told me, hey, there's a couple Bigfoot over the hill behind us right here in the creek, which was only a few hundred yards. So I'm leaving the group there just to walk up this little rise, and I'm looking to my right, and I see this bright light start flashing. Now, it's 12:30 at night in the Cascades up there at Sharps Creek. And I'm like, what the heck is that? We're the only people out here, in the middle of the Cascades on a Wednesday night at 12:30 at night. And I see it flash a few times. And so I walk closer and I get my phone ready, and I'm thinking about it's doing it about every 2 minutes. So about 1 minute, 45 seconds, I start snapping pics and I end up getting a picture of that.
Wow.
And that's a big pine tree. You can see it to the bottom left. And what it looked like was years ago when I was young, they had flash cubes on cameras, flash bulbs.
Yep.
And they would make the flash for the camera, and then they would kind of stay on for a second and then fade out slowly from the heat or whatever. That's what it looked like. It looked like a flash cube thing blowing out of that tree, out of the side of that big pine tree.
It's incredible.
Up into the sky. And it's really weird. So I showed it to everyone. They said, no, that's a portal. And it was funny because I saw it a couple more times and I didn't go real close because I was scared of it. I went and got Tobe and came back, and it had stopped doing it by then. But we heard 2 Bigfoots whooping down in the creek after that, and some tree knocks. And I got some crazy tree knocks too. I heard at the Owl Moon house. But that thing right there is coming out of I could take you right to the tree up there at Sharps Creek and show you it.
That's
and
absolutely incredible.
It was about 8 feet tall, and it would just flash out of that tree up into the air like that, like it was going up into the air. It was a clear night, no clouds, no rain, perfectly clear night. And it's just some kind of energy release from that tree or something. Nobody knows what it is, But
Darrell, this conversation has been incredible. Our time is rapidly getting to a close as we wrap up. So let's say if you continue to go through that massive backlog of audio and you find things like your version of something that sounds like the samurai chatter, is there anywhere that you are putting these things up, or is it just kind of like maybe someday there'll be a Owl Moon Lab 2, or we just kind of have to wait and see?
Yeah, I got it all saved. So, Flash of Beauties use some of it, and maybe we'll use some more. Maybe there'll be more Flash of Beauties. Heck yeah.
That's always a good thing. I love those guys. So
yeah, they're awesome.
Well,
but Darrell, I have so much. I have everything but a body. I have fingerprints, hair. I still got tons of hair. We had so many footprints. I just gave up. Hydrocal's $50 a bag or whatever. So
sure.
After $500 worth of footprints.
I feel that, man, that
fingerprints, footprints, pictures. Yeah.
That wilderness area, if there could be people that start hitting that place hard again, I mean, the stuff that could be pulled out of there could be intense.
Oh, it could.
Wow.
I also have on my game cam, I have cloaking, right? Where it ate the peanut butter off the tree. Have you seen that on Tobe's thing? He can send real good ones to you. It's like the thing Barb Shoop got, the cloaking.
Sure. Yeah.
You can see the peanut butter vanishing off the tree, and there's like a distorted figure eating it.
Oh my goodness, really?
You can see where it presses up against the latex gloves that I have tied onto the tree, because when I would do the peanut butter, I would use latex gloves on the pine tree, and
Yeah.
then I just take them off inside out and tie them on the limb down below. You can see where this thing comes up with its leg and gets against the latex gloves and actually lifts them up. I mean, you can totally see through it, and you can just start seeing the peanut butter vanishing off the tree with a distorted figure like the Predator movie
Okay.
taking the peanut butter. So if I had better cameras and all that, I think I could get a fully. Mark Parker also has some really good Predator type stuff he got there from cookies that he put on a tree, Nutter Butter cookies.
Okay.
And he had a little better game cam. But I think if I could get one of these new game cams, put one taking pictures and one doing a video, I think I could totally get a really good video of a cloaked out whatever this thing is.
I mean,
I'm
you
not saying
could,
if it's a Sasquatch or a alien, or
right. Yeah. You
because I
could
don't know.
even do like a cellular game cam setup so you could,
Yeah, because
you know,
there's no phone service in that area. Just that
uh,
area has absolutely no phone
isn't that
service.
so weird? Just that
It's
one
weird.
area?
Just
Huh.
right there. Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not really surprised, actually.
Yeah. And it'll knock your batteries out. It'll erase
Really?
your phones.
Ooh.
It'll record a video on your phone like it did mine, its own video of two weird people talking. I'll send you that one too.
Whoa, dude.
No, I
That's
talked to a
intense.
police forensic guy. He
Yeah.
can't figure it out. He's like, no, that's impossible. That your
Holy
phone at
mackerel.
midnight can do its own video in your locked pickup truck. Because I didn't have my phone out there because I didn't have any service, and it's at night, so it can't take pictures. So I would just lock it in the truck when we were out. And we'd seen orbs that night, me and Tobe and another guy. We saw a lot of orbs there. You can probably go there anytime and see an orb if you want to
Sure.
see them. They're red
Wow.
and white is the only two colors I saw. Maybe a yellow, orange, like a burnt orange one or two.
That's incredible. That whole area, Cottage Grove, Roseburg, I get tons of random people contacting me and being like, "Hey, yeah, I've experienced this around Roseburg or
Yeah, I know.
Cottage Grove." It's a lot down there,
There's a
for
lot of
sure.
stuff around Roseburg, yeah, too.
Absolutely.
I could talk this stuff for 3 weeks because I got so much.
I could listen for 3 weeks, but
I
I
did,
don't think the story is done, and I think
yeah.
eventually there'll maybe be another conversation to be had. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on, Darrell, for a
no
little bit
problem.
and
Thank you.
sharing some photos, and we'll see where this leads. And you just before you go though, are you actively putting out anything that or people can contact you, or is it a
Um,
thing where like you kind of, if there's
I'm
stuff,
kind
maybe
of,
flash a beauty type thing?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
kind of starting to try to make me a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
just to put some of my stuff on there. I've been calling it Bigfoot Justified. So I just kind of started it.
Oh,
I'm tech zero, so I don't know how to put much on there or whatever. But as I go out there, I'm going to kind of hook up with Tobe and stuff. He's having his thing, on the 26th out in Washington. So I'm going to be out there for that, and we're going to hang out, and maybe he can help me put some things on there for people to see, or, contact me on Facebook and I can send you stuff on Messenger or whatever.
okay. So is it okay to link your Facebook profile to this?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're Bigfoot Justified, the channel with 4 subscribers right now.
Yeah, I just
All
started it,
right,
and,
all
and
right, that's
I'm
awesome.
I really need someone to help me with it. I'm zero tech, like I
Um,
said.
I'll
Maybe
I'll
that's
link
why the
that
Bigfoot
too.
like me, because I'm not a threat to them,
Right,
and I
exactly.
feed them peanut butter.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I've done a little bit of YouTube stuff, but yeah,
Yeah,
we'll get that linked, and hopefully
cool.
some more people will be checking out your new channel. I'm so glad you're doing that though. But Darrell, thank you so much for hanging out, man. It's been
Yeah,
a
thank you.
pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, and hopefully our paths will cross one day outside of the internet. And
I'm
yeah, you
sure
have
they
a
will.
good day, man.
All right. Thank you very
All
much.
right.
All righty.